Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's reading is fairly deep spiritually because we're going to be looking at your path as a mystic, and I'm looking at it on two levels. One level is the sort of more generalized spiritual pathways and approaches anybody who is looking at a spiritual experience may be following in terms of self-healing, in terms of connection, in terms of communion, in terms of ascension, all of those sorts of things. But I'll also, particularly in the tarot part of it, be looking at the sort of concepts that are the more classic mystic, if we think of it as the mystical traditions in the more established religions. And what I mean by that is, for instance, Sufism in Islam is the mystical tradition of the Islamic faith, and what it has in common with the Christian mysticism, Jewish mysticism, even in its own way Buddhism and so forth, is the concept that the ultimate aim of the mystic is communion and, in a sense, being connected to, almost dissolved into the divine. So it is a concept that is often talked about in terms of almost love as a lover to the beloved. If you read Rumi poetry for Sufism or some of their parables, this definitely talks about the concept that the spiritual seeker, the mystic, is the lover and the divine is the beloved. And so there is this very deep sense that that is your ultimate connection and your ultimate goal. And that has certain things associated with it in terms of your sort of spiritual practice and where you put your priorities. But as I say, this particular reading, you don't have to be following a standard mystical tradition. You may be, and if so, then you'll look at this through that lens. But more generally, the reason I wanted to do a reading on this, and the reason I want to focus in, particularly when we get to the tarot part on that, is that in the tarot part of it, I'm going to look at your path of light, the overall aims that you're doing, how that is going at the moment. But then I'm going to look at the dark night of the soul. And I'm looking at it from a very specific perspective, because the dark night of the soul is a colloquial term now that is used a lot in sort of healing work, shadow work, spiritual work. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've used it this way myself as well too. But on that level, it is really looking at things like shadow work. It's looking at self-love and healing and all of those sorts of things. And sometimes the spiritual crisis that can occur and feel like depression or feel like you're going a bit mad, those sort of energies can occur with the dark night of the soul in that way. But the original dark night of the soul was actually a Christian mysticism term coined by St. John. And he wrote a poem called The Dark Night of the Soul. And in that, it was looking at this core issue, which is the individual soul communing with and connecting with the divine. Excuse me. So he wrote it as a lover to a beloved, with this sort of despair. The despair of the dark night of the soul was the realization that as an individual soul, no matter how much that soul mystically may love the divine is essentially unknowable, essentially so huge and so all-encompassing that an individual soul feels unable to make that final connection. So it's dealing with that issue and dealing with being in the 3D, dealing with being an individual soul to the mystic. That's the dark night of the soul concept. And in day-to-day living, it's a bit more like our ego, our individual self, and not in a negative way at all. I'm not using ego negatively here at all. But the sense of personal sovereignty compared to our connection to others, and that we are pulled in both those directions. And that, I think, is the essence of the dark night of the soul. So in this reading, we may very much look at the first, which is around the sort of mystical connection to the divine, or it may pick up how we are interacting with people around us and our community and our soul tribe and so forth. So it will depend on what comes up with it. But I very much wanted to focus in on that because there is a lot said about the dark night of the soul, but it's worth knowing what its core origin was, because that may mean a great deal to you, either in the 3D or more generally in your spiritual practice. It doesn't have to for the purpose of this reading, but that's the sort of flavour of how I'm going to be looking at the tarot part of it. And then we're going to look at, divine helpers for you. We're going to look at other sort of aspects to bring it all together, your spiritual gifts and so forth. But we'll start with a bit of a snapshot of where you're at the moment with your spiritual, mystical journey. So, as always, I've got the numbers here around the piles to choose from. Go to more than one if you feel drawn to more than one. There may be some amalgam of this that actually better distills your mystical journey. What I have got is an image here, a card from a particular deck. The Mystical Journey Oracle seemed to be the ideal sort of deck to use as part of this exercise. And maybe the wording, maybe the images, etc. may draw to you. You may have other ways of choosing your pile. But for pile number 1, we have the card of compassion. For pile number 2, we have the card of the eternal self. For pile number 3, we have the card of manifestation. And for pile number 4, we have the pile of the card of connection. So as I say, one of those sort of concepts or images may draw you, something else may. If you need to pause the video and contemplate, by all means do that. When you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps as always will be in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So hang on for a second, I'll just get the camera better angled. There we go. So these cards, the compassion card was what drew you here. We have a second card from the same deck to give us a bit of a sense of what the key mystical path you're on at the moment, and then more information from these before we go into the tarot. For pile number 1, you are people who would be very well acquainted with the concept, both colloquially and more generally, I think, of the dark night of the soul. You are people who are able to go within your shadow, and you do it to understand yourself and better connect with people and get the right sort of approach, the right sort of aims, the right sort of ambitions and so forth, that keeps your heart center open. I would say that many of you have been through some difficulties in life, whether it is around relationships or potentially materially, or even something from generational or family-based patterns. There is something that has made you focus your spirituality on understanding the depths of people and yourself and looking at it with acceptance and with compassion. This card calls you at this point to open your heart and to keep it open, to look always with compassion. And there is sacred wisdom, there is a sense of spiritual downloads and connection that is helping you do that, so that when you are confronted by the shadow, either in yourself or in others, you are able to accept what can be done and what can build, and also let go of what isn't working. The challenge for you at the moment is that while you are very compassionate, this shadow work that you do can create in you a sense of being a lone wolf, of being on your own, of either feeling that you are not acceptable to other people and that you are constantly needing to redo things or to work on yourself, or that other people are not like you, that you are different. You certainly are somebody who leads out. There is a basic leadership energy with these cards and with this, and also with the level 9 consciousness, which is suggesting with that sacred wisdom, as I say, that you are quite well advanced on a mystical pathway, whether it's a classic one or whether it is just your sort of ascension pathway and so forth. But there is a tendency to have separated out. And now it may even be, because we have the creator here, that it is because you have taken on a role to teach others, lead others, coach and mentor others. And I think if that's the case, that's fine. But Spirit is now saying that the key thing is to make sure that when you open your heart and you have the compassion for other people, there is not any projection or any separation that occurs with it. These cards together, you're likely to be a very powerful influencer for others. You're likely to be someone who brings new pathways for spiritual involvement and spiritual development and so forth. But there is, Spirit here is asking you, and the divine is asking you, to make sure that you always consider what you find in the shadow work, but you don't project it, but you use it to understand and accept others. You may have very, very high standards, I think, around your spiritual development, and I think you hold yourself in quite strict regulation. It can make you feel that other people don't. So that is sort of the pathway at this point, to find how you can create that consciousness in others in a way that is accepting rather than a way that dictates a particular outcome, because your pathway is your pathway and is a combination of your own sense of love and your own sense of shadow, whatever this thing was that you've dealt with. So I think that the main issue here, and it'll be interesting to see whether it comes up in the dark night of the soul part of the reading, is to use this development and this wisdom in a way that is compassionate and embracing rather than defining in some way or projecting in some way. And as I say, this goes to the core of the dark night of the soul issue, which is that which is separate in us and truly us compared to that which is connecting us to others. And if you are taking a pioneer leadership role and creating new spiritual pathways, bringing your wisdom in, there is a risk of getting so far ahead or being so far above that other people follow you, but you don't have that connection in the 3D world with them. Now, sometimes for pure mysticism, that might be all right. This could be the sort of energy that someone becomes a Bodhisattva or some form of spiritual leader, and that separation is not that much of a problem. But I do feel with this that there is some work to do around what are the motivations around it all and what are the motivations of the people around you. So let's ask with the tarot for a little bit more detail on what is your path of light. So what is your ultimate mystical aim, pile 1? So this, it's interesting because with the Hierophant reversed and with the Four of Wands reversed as well too, your path of light is to some degree, Spirit is saying, separate. So you are erring more towards a sort of separate, leader, and leader in a very new way than you are the sort of just being there in the community and so forth. So your compassion needs to almost be a little bit detached and on higher order things. You're not meant necessarily to be mixing a lot with people for your spiritual outcomes. You're meant to be bringing a clarity and a balance to the philosophy around what you're doing, and potentially to set in place almost principles about how to be with others, how to be truly compassionate, sort of radical compassion where it really actually has a practical outcome. Spirit is saying that to some degree, and this may be why the shadow work is there, you have been trying to work out how to do that in the world, and more recently the sort of material outcomes of it have not truly come to fruition. With the Seven of Pentacles reversed, it suggests that how you deal with this materially, how you invest and grow in some way you haven't really sorted that out yet. And I think part of it is that you are unconventional. You're unconventional in how you do this. You are not following, I think, any standard mystical tradition and so forth. You are being a pioneer for something of your own. You're creating something of your own. Spirit is saying that you almost need to go straight into the philosophy and what this looks like in terms of activity and action and so forth, rather than trying to draw in other people at the moment. In fact, for some of you, you may be around a spiritual group where there's a great deal of competition or disharmony, or where there are, even if you are, working for a cause or something like that for this, there may be issues around the bookkeeping almost and how that's operating. So on a very pragmatic level, this could be saying part of your pathway of light is to bring that to the surface and bring it more into balance and sort of justice, literally. But I think for many others, it's just saying that there is a set of rules, and I don't mean it in a really strict, like thou shalt type of rules. It's not necessarily Moses with the 10 Commandments that we're talking about here, but it's more a set of balanced principles. So part of what you're working out within yourself is what that looks like. And I think that the original cards with Spirit saying that it is always a very careful balance between understanding the shadow and what we need to regulate within ourselves or within those around us. And I think for many of you, there might be a group that you're around that is not necessarily walking the talk. So there's a balance around that, and the compassion and acceptance and understanding of difference. How that is your core thing, both within yourself and others. How do you become a pioneer and a creator of something new that takes people forward and leads people? But in doing it, give enough principles for action that people can follow it, but not so many that it actually becomes just a judgment. You don't want justice to move to judgment in that case. Okay, so let's have a look at the dark night of the soul. So as I said right at the beginning, you are very much connected, I think, to the dark night of the soul concept here with the shadow work there from the beginning, and also with this sense that you are trying to work out the difference between you as an individual and a lone wolf and you as someone with others in some form. And as I say, this doesn't even have to be a spiritual group. This could be in your workplace, it could be around friends, it could be anything. But that is the core thing that you're trying to sort through at the moment. So let's see what Spirit wants to say about the dark night of the soul for you. So firstly, what's fascinating here is that we have the Seven of Pentacles from both decks sitting on top of each other. So this definitely suggests that for most of the people who've come to this reading, there is something on the material level, a work, career, business, anything that has to do with material things has not really worked out. And part of what is putting you in the dark night of the soul is trying to recalibrate that. So it's really doubling down on that. It's really saying that part of this is about the balance. If you look into why something, a group isn't working out and it's full of sort of discord, because there's a similar level of discord here and your capacity to come out of it with the Five of Swords reversed. So whether it's a group, whether it's a family situation, whether it's a relationship, whether it's friends, whether it's work, there's something where there has been a lot of detachment and a lot of conflict. Not necessarily really major conflict. I always think with the fives that it's sort of minor conflict, and the fact that it's the Four there of Wands reverse, it's sort of like, as I say, it kind of feels a bit petty. It kind of feels like little ego clashes in the night sort of concept. So there's something there that at the core of this, it's like trying to create the thing, whether it's a creative project, a spiritual thing, whatever it might be. And because of the nature of this reading, if you come to this reading, I think for many it will be a spiritual approach. It will be a way of being spiritual. It just hasn't materialized. Maybe some of you have been trying to manifest things and it hasn't materialized because you haven't fully worked out the sort of logic and structure behind what you do. And this is saying the dark night of the soul, there's a little bit of cynicism that's crept in. Whether it's cynicism around other people, or whether it's cynicism about whether manifestation works, or whether it's sort of like how do you have a spiritual approach while straitjacketing yourself with a philosophy. So it's working that through. What is not working in your life at the moment. When you get there, though, it is saying that very rapidly you can bring to completion what you need to do and to move to the next level and communicate it. Because with the Page of Swords, that is a card of communication and clarity, and the World is a card of completion. And really, the Fool, it's interesting here because I think it's saying it on two levels. It's saying on one level that once you've gone through the dark night of soul, once you've worked out your balance of your own shadow, other people's shadow, and what you're trying to do from a compassionate heart, you can very quickly turn this around and start to bring whatever you're trying to manifest in and communicate that. But then you start on a whole new pathway. It's like the next step comes after that with the Fool reversed, because I always feel like the Fool reversed follows the World in a way. Having gone through the whole cycle, the Fool is now wiser and moves forward. So there is wisdom to be had in this struggle of working out what didn't work. And there is something there. If you come to the right reading, pile one, you will resonate to this. There is something that didn't quite take and did cause some form of either conflict within yourself, but I think for most people conflict with others. But it is possible once you've sort of sorted that out and got that balance of compassion and shadow and put it into some sort of gentle, accepting, but nevertheless demanding set of principles, then you can move quite quickly. So I think this also is saying, because we started with the World, that you're very close to finishing that. That's why the shadow work came in. You've been dealing with a period, I'd say, of the dark night of the soul in that more colloquial term. So given that, it looks to me like you've got a creation or a mission with your mystical path. The other cards that were under the card that drew you here are 3 cards from decks that have different sorts of spiritual gifts. So let's have a look at what spiritual gifts you have for this pathway. We have Ascension Path 10. So that's sort of the highest ascension path. There's definitely, with sacred wisdom and so forth, you are very developed in this pathway. The fact that things haven't quite manifest the way that you want or had the return on investment you want does not mean that you aren't. It's just the higher you go up the ladder, I guess, the more demand is put on you to balance the compassion with that which is the shadow. We have believe. So yes, believe in yourself. I think something started to make you doubt yourself, started to make you doubt whether you could be a pioneer, whether you could be the creator, and made you start to wonder whether the shadow work was too much all about you or people were pushing back on you. But in fact, that's not the case. It's just about balance. So believe in yourself. And we have tarot. So many of you may be tarot readers, or you may be interested in tarot. Tarot can also be a very strong way of getting the sort of information that you need downloaded to you. But I just feel many of you may literally understand and know tarot and use tarot as a way to bring that into balance. And what I like about that, pile 1, is that tarot, one of the powers of tarot, I mean, all oracle decks are beautiful and all oracle decks have messages from spirit. But I always think with tarot, it is the most perfect distillation of both the spiritual and life process in the major arcana, and almost the kind of psychological and 3D elements of how you go from a beginning of an idea through to its fruition in the minor arcana. There is, in fact, in tarot, more than any other divinatory framework, I'm trying to think of the right word, divinatory sort of form, more of kind of that justice level, that kind of, there is an internal logic to it, there is an internal rigor, which is probably one of the reasons why it's lasted so long. So I think you use that very well, and I think you can use it for your own shadow work and for balancing your heart with what you want to do. And you do want to be seen as the creator of something new, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, Spirit is saying. Okay, so let's also shuffle and get you some divine guides, some divine sort of support. So we'll start with a couple of divine animals as animal totems, then we'll get a goddess, and then we're going to get a couple of angels before we finish up with some astrology and the soul cards. So firstly, divine animal totems to help you at this stage of your mystical pathway, pile 1. And we have owl, wisdom. Yes, this is you. Actually, I think the fact that we've got owl twice here, some of you may literally have an owl as a totem. Pay attention to that. Read up on I'm trying to think of the name. It's escaping me. Minerva. I kept thinking Nirvana for some reason. Minerva, the goddess of the owl. There is something about wisdom, and wisdom will be with you because you have developed it in this lifetime and probably other lifetimes. And then we also have beaver, which is about work. So yes, there's something you're bringing into being, there's something you're bringing into balance, there's something material, and beaver will help you do the work that you need to do, both the work about refining it and going through the shadow process, but I think also about bringing it out into material reality. This is not just a spiritual or philosophical thing for you, pile 1. You actually do want to manifest something, and I think beaver will help you do that. Okay, let's get a goddess energy to help you on your mystical pathway. Oh, wow. Sophia, knowing. So Sophia is ultimately wisdom again. Like you guys who've come here are off the charts in terms of spiritual understanding and knowledge. This is why you're now confronting this really significant issue, because you are advanced beyond others. You do have that connection. Sophia, wisdom is coming to you. Part of the wisdom is being able to balance that within yourself. It's that maxim that to those that much is given, much is expected. As you go up the ladder, and you are significantly up the ladder, pile 1, the demands on you are higher, and you do need to somehow create and pioneer something that brings that wisdom in. That's where the justice card is coming in. It's not so much righting wrongs, it's about somehow articulating this in a form that can help other people. Okay, so let's also see what angels may be around you, just general angels and the energy that they provide as you go through this mystical journey. Angel of divine timing. Angel of families. Okay, so for some of you, this could connect to your family. I did have a sense at the beginning, I said, maybe, sort of like almost generational wisdom, generational knowledge and so forth. There's something like that for some of you. For others, it's about finding your soul family, but finding it within a structure where I think you are a leader, where you are a nurturer within that for other people, and that sense of connection. I think one of the reasons the Angel of Families is also with you, Pile 1, is so that you do have that sense of connection, because there was a bit of a risk right from the beginning that no matter how compassionate you are and the wisdom you bring to it, your leadership role could have separated yourself. So I think the Angel of Families is to make sure that you do stay connected. An Angel of divine timing fits with Sophia, the owls here, and that sense that things will come at the time they need to. So give it the time that's necessary. Okay, so to finish off, we want to look at some astrology energy around you for the moment, and then we're going to draw a soul card for the final sort of visual representation of your mystical path, Pile 1. Okay, we have full moon, sextile, so we'll look at what planets are involved with that, and third house. Third house, that's interesting. The third house, to me, it's about communication. It's about getting your message out. This is partly how you are going to take your spiritual path through. It is to connect with others, but it's primarily through your communication and that Page of Swords energy. Once you're ready, once you've completed your sojourn in the dark night of the soul, you will be ready to take this out. And the full moon says that there is a harvest. You will turn this around. Whatever this is that hasn't worked, you will turn it around, because you are meant to reap the rewards. And it should be easier than you expect with sextile, because that is an aspect of ease. But I'm going to now just deal out till I get 2 planets to see what planets we're looking at having ease of energy for you in this mystical journey. Oh, excuse me for a second, one just dropped out. And it was a planet, so I'm going to put it there. Venus is one. And now I'll deal out for the second planet. Venus and the moon. This is the compassion. So this is the heart. And I think that Spirit is saying that you are, to some degree, you are ready to sort of harvest things in a material world. You're very close to the world here and very close to be able to communicate. But the key thing to always bear in mind, the thing that is actually bringing this in, is not so much the shadow work you've done, it's the compassion. That's why you came to compassion to start with. That's why you were drawn to that card and to this reading. Your sense of love and your sort of spiritual connection and psychic connection to others work in a very easeful way. You draw people to you because of a very open and caring heart, and then you can give a structure to what they do. You can communicate a structure to what you're doing to help others and to be a leader. Okay, so we're going to finish off with a soul card, which is a deck of cards that has very, very evocative imagery, but no set meaning. So I will tell you what I get from the image that I draw, and then you can maybe pause and contemplate it for yourself a bit as you might thinking about an image that you saw in a dream. So this is the ultimate mystic, I have to say. You are kind of the ultimate mystic, even though I think you're doing this in a very material way. And why I say that is this is the lover looking at the beloved in a way. I also feel as though it is connecting you to the moon. I feel like this is the moon as well. So I think that you probably have the moon very strongly in your chart. You are probably very much influenced by the cycles of the moon. You also maybe have the gift of prophecy, because the moon is connected to the Archangel Gabriel, which is in fact the Archangel of prophecy. So there's that kind of energy around you as well. But this is the love. So in a way, this is the distillation of the mystic love for the divine, for that which is greater, for that which nourishes all. And it's interesting that we see a yellow sort of thing coming out here, which to me makes me think of the solar plexus chakra. It suggests to me that your natural leadership ability, which is profound, comes from your connection to the divine. There's almost like an umbilical cord operating there. It is very, very strong. So you being able to define who you are in the world helps others, and the connection to the divine helps you define who you are as well too. So you are a very mystical person, but I do think that you will somehow do this in a business or something you do for your career or something material in some way, and it brings people with you because of that balance of wisdom and heart. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 1. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile number 2, to your reading. So this is the card that drew you here, and this is a second card from that same deck to give us a bit of an overall flavour of your mystical journey with some more information here. And what I must say is that the people who have come to this reading, if you've come to the right reading, you are highly evolved in terms of a mystical journey, possibly because of starseed origins with the Arcturian card there. But even if you don't relate to or resonate to the sense of starseed, there is a sense of an understanding of your eternal self, your Atman, as this card talks about, the part of the soul that is eternal, that incarnates for a human experience but is part of something greater. You have a very, very strong sense of that and of having a purpose. And what this card with clearing your space is talking about is that you are here for a reason. Your mystical journey almost feels less about you and more about other people. The sense I get of this is that maybe you are someone who is very advanced with the spiritual side of things. In a sense, you haven't come here to develop yourself. That isn't what you're doing this time around. You're here to help others evolve and to protect others. Possibly you are in a situation or around a lot of conflict or issues, maybe in a sort of family type of situation. It could be politically, it could be the country that you're living in, it could be anything. But it just feels as though you have come here as a mature soul to be protective and nurturing and supportive to others rather than necessarily developing yourself, because I just feel like most of you have developed so far in a way that that's not the purpose at this point. It's more that you come as a splinter of the divine into the world, as the Atman, to help others ascend. Whether you're aware of it, you may not be fully aware of it. With this card, the memories of the forgotten self, is that degree of understanding of the spiritual pathway, you're born into this world, you probably don't remember it. We don't tend to remember things from past lives, except for, in a sense, a kind of direction that you get, and an understanding that sometimes you need to refine where you're putting your energy. And I think this is what this is trying to tell you, because I think on some level you have a naturally, as I say, protective sort of energy for other people. You are someone probably from even when you were young that people came to for advice and so forth, and you will do that. It's like the memory of who you were is coming out as this sort of knight, and also potentially around any love relationship. And I feel like the lover here is not just around interpersonal, sort of falling in love, romantic love, though it's certainly to the degree that you may pursue that in your life, and that may be in your life, it's certainly part of what you would protect. You certainly protect love above all things, but I think it is love of friends, family, lovers, and the community in a broader level, depending on how you're working your mystical pathway. But you are here for a reason, and this suggests that there's been a lot of demands on you of recent times, a lot of almost white noise around that you need to clear. That's what Spirit is calling on you to do, to remember who you are and what your purpose is, and to refocus on that. Some, in fact, of the white noise might be from those who want your protection, your guidance, your leadership, that are not the ones that you're meant to be doing it for. It may be that for some of you, there are people who just naturally follow you, want your advice, but you need to almost, part of your protection is to set them free so that they find their own way. So there's a balance, there's a wisdom coming to this. And as I say, the Arcturian sort of energy you definitely can channel to the higher levels. You may be a starseed, but the Arcturians are also, in a sense, as I say, more advanced, and they watch over and help humanity. So that's the sense of you. But your core comes from who you love, and a sort of broader sense of love, and potentially literally the lover to the beloved in the divine. So yeah, very, very advanced sort of feeling here, but possibly you've forgotten that, you don't know that about yourself, and it most manifests in just being naturally protective. So let's firstly have a look at where your light path is at the moment, pile 2. So I think the reason that these memories of the forgotten self has come up, and also the sort of clearing of the space, is that there are some decisions that Spirit is asking you to make, both material decisions and kind of almost intellectual decisions about where to put your heart. It looks like there's at least one person around you who is drawing a lot from your emotional energy and your support. And in a sense, the feeling that I had, which was part of the message, was some people you need to actually let go, that the most protective thing you can do is let them go to make their own decisions. I feel like this is pointing to someone in your life like that. So it's coming up as the Queen of Cups reversed. Doesn't have to be a woman. But the Queen of Cups, when she's reversed, in this context, I think, has not fully opened their own heart. It is possible for some of you that you need to let go of a relationship that you love, somebody that you love, because they need to find their own courage. And the only way that you can truly love them is to let them go. And you're remembering your eternal self, and you're remembering your mission, which is broader than just what you get for you. You are, as I say, at a point where that's not really the point, at least for this life. So I'm feeling that for some, it may be letting go of a relationship. For others, it may be sort of releasing somebody from them seeing you as almost a parental figure. You may literally be a parental figure. This could be a child of yours, but I think they're grown up if that's the case. And so there is a need to let them develop their own strength and move out of that sort of care that you have. It could also be, if you're working on a political or social cause level, which some of you will with this sort of spread of cards, it could be that it's at a point where a group of people you've been trying to help now need to find their own courage. The more that you look after them, the less they do that. And it is an act of love to set them free. For others, it is for you to find what it is, your next sort of thing to love, the next thing to protect. And there are decisions to make about that, about where to put your energy. This is why the clearing of the space is important. This is why remembering who you are is important. So let's have a look and see what the Dark Night of the Soul is bringing for you, pile 2. Sorry if you heard that. That's my iPad telling me that rain's coming. If you heard it, I'm not sure if it came up on the audio for this. So this is interesting because we've got the Empress now and we've also got the Father. There is definitely for many of you some sort of parental type of role. It doesn't literally have to be that you're a parent, though many of you may be, but it is as though around people spiritually or in the workplace that you're in or in the cause that you're doing, you have definitely taken on a parental role. And I think the Dark Night of the Soul is now asking you to consider what you need to let go of that, what is actually not working anymore. There is conflict that is being brought up. And I think it feels like some of the people who you've looked after may even be starting to push back on your support, not because they don't value it, but because they need that sense of freedom. So part of this is to end for you that sense that that is your only role. It's part of your role, but your broader role is about showing people a pathway for their own ascension to reach the level that you're at. So there's something about ending this parental role that's necessary, and it does take you into well, what is my role now? And that's why it's important to remember who you are, that it is more than just this particular function that I think that you've played. Some of you may be teachers or caregivers or something. There's something like that you need to sort of reassess as to the balance of where your care is protective and helpful and where it is actually limiting for other people, and how you communicate that care in a way that allows that to be released. again, with the 9 of Cups here, you come very much from the heart, and going back to the heart and clearing space with the heart is the way of doing it. You kind of need to slow down a bit with the Knight of Swords reverse and really consider this. And it does look to me like you think things through a lot. You know, there's a lot of mental energy here, and part of the decision making sits in the mental space. But this is saying that the heart with the 9 of Cups and what it is that makes you feel love and makes you feel like the lover in that very broad sense is the way to reconnect. That you have taken on too much of a, as I say, nurturing role and not enough of a almost detached but teaching role, if that makes sense. Okay, so it's a very delicate balance, but you do in fact have the wisdom and the development to do this. It is just about remembering that you do, and then allowing things to grow in the way that they need to grow. So let's have a look. There were also some cards that were under this card that brought you here that were intuitively pulled before I started filming, and this is meant to be showing some spiritual gifts that can help you in your pathway, pile 2. So firstly, we have clairsentience, clear feeling. So yes, this is you. A lot of your psychic ability comes from the heart. It comes from feeling. Pay attention to your feelings. Pay attention to that rather than your head. It's like the information comes in and you try and put it into some sort of structure, but you don't need to do that. What the divine is saying is that you're beyond needing to do that. And once you stop doing that, you're more likely to sort of detach from feeling you also have to give structure to others once they've got to the point that they need the freedom. Knowledge. Yeah, you have all the knowledge you need. This is partly remembering things. Many of you, if you look into sort of ancient texts or ancient sort of religions or mystical traditions, you're going to find a lot that's familiar. This is about remembering. I just feel like many of you, you've come into the world and you almost haven't really, you haven't taken on a spiritual role or anything like that. It's so inculcated in you that it's almost not, there isn't the drive to do that, but there is the drive, as I say, to protect, support and nurture others. Getting back to that knowledge, you'll get that balance a little bit better. And we have spells and alchemy. Well, I think one of the knowledge things here is alchemy. Look at alchemy, look at that process, because you've gone through it, pile 2. You've gone through the full alchemical process, I think. And that's partly what you need to remember, the purification of the soul, which ultimately needs to be done by an individual. This is the interesting thing that creates the dark night of the soul, as I say, that the individual has to do the pathway towards the communal. So you've done that, I believe, in another life or even in this life potentially, but maybe you've sort of forgotten how powerful that was. This is the message for you, to be able to show others the way and protect them and nurture them to the degree that's necessary, but not to the degree that stops them. There's a point in the alchemical process called the Negreda where everything is burnt down, and that is probably a bit of a scary point. It's a bit like the dark night of the soul. You can't stop other people going through the dark night of the soul, pile 2. You can't protect other people from that. You need to allow them to do it, but you can give them the wisdom about how to do it, and you can live as a beacon of somebody who did it and evolved and was not sort of destroyed by it. So it's more live your truth, remember your truth and live your truth, because that is the thing that truly nurtures others. Okay, so let's also have a look at what sort of guides and spirit sort of support you can get. So we'll start firstly with a couple of animal totems, then we'll look at a goddess, and then we'll look at some angels. So what animal totems can help you at this point on your mystical journey, pile 2? Hyena, fear, okay, and rhinoceros, moderation. Okay, so I think this is a very specific thing. I think because you're so protective, there is a fear that you have that other people will somehow be hurt by this process. You're so protective. I mean, it's lovely. You're a loving, caring person. But you need to manage that and moderate that fear that you have yourself, that other people may not be ready for what the spiritual process needs. And once you moderate it in yourself, you can help others with the fear so that they feel they don't need to just do what you do. They don't need to listen to you and you to be, as I say, the parental figure. It's like allowing them to face their fear and moderate it and be able to move forward. So it's a process in you of facing your own fear about what is my role it actually has a bit of a feeling of the empty nest. And now that doesn't say that that's the case if you have children leaving, though some of you might. But one of the things that happens with parents once children leave is there's an adjustment needed, because the relationship has shifted from being the very direct parental nurturing role into being more like a friend and a guide when necessary and so forth. That's the shift, and you have to deal with your own fear and moderate that in some way. So could even be that you had a leadership role in an organisation and you're moving out of that to let other people sort of step into their leadership, and it's like, well, can I be a guide? Can I be a mentor? Can I be a coach? And these are all things that potentially could be exactly what you need to be, but you can't be the boss anymore. So it's that sort of shift. Okay, let's ask what goddess energy is with you to help you, pile 2. We have Hecate, solitude. So this may be, some of you may be literally having people leaving your life as a process of that. It may be people that you loved. It may be people that you nurtured. It may also be saying that one of the ways to get back to remember who you are is solitude. Hecate certainly takes you to the depths, but she does it to enlighten you. So that preparedness again to do that may be a bit of a role model to others, and she can guide you towards the shift. This is what this is over and over it's saying, is that you're shifting what you're here for. There's an overarching thing that you're here for, but you've almost gone through phase 1 and you're moving into phase 2. Hecate will help you go to phase 2. Let's see what angels will support you as well, pile 2. Angel of patience, angel of friendship. Okay, so patience certainly will be helpful for you. You know, just the patience with yourself, the patience with others as this change occurs. Because as I say, it feels fairly significant. And also the patience to remember who you are and to sort of see the scope of who you are. Angel of friendship suggests to me that there is, as I say, there's a shift. There's a shift in roles. You're not going to lose these people from your life. They're going to become more like friends and eventually peers. So that's allowing them to do that and shift and change and grow into themselves. They will become friends to you. So there's not the loss that you may expect in allowing that shift of your role. Okay, so let's finish up with some astrology energy for you and then a soul card image to bring it all together. So astrology energy around pile 2 at this point in time in your mystical journey is square. So that's an aspect. We'll have a look at the planets. 11th house, this is connecting to friends. You are going to have friends with this. And sun, your life path. I feel like your life path is bringing people to your level and moving from being a nurturing person to being a friend, being a peer. It's like you're here to accelerate other people's development because you've already done it, part 2. Now, the square energy is an aspect of tension and action. So I'm going to just shuffle and I'm going to see what planets come out, because it will tell us a little bit, I think, about the shift you need to make in the role that you have with others. Takes a while sometimes to get to a planet. Saturn, okay, yes, this is the father energy. This is the paternal, this is the person who is looking after other people, and Venus. Okay, so Saturn and Venus square. There is something about the act of love is actually releasing people from your regulation in a way. The square is your wish to be the sort of nurturing paternal or maternal figure for people is in square to your lover energy. For some of you, I'm getting this may be that it is a relationship that you need to let go of, someone that you loved, as I said, but someone who needs to go and find themselves. I think we saw that right at the beginning with the light angel tarot. So for some of you, there is that love needs to shift from being protective to something more, and maybe you need to sort of have that discipline around that energy. Okay. Pile 2. Let's finish off with a soul card. So this comes from a couple of decks that I put together, Soul Cards 1 and Soul Cards 2, that that have really profound imagery, no specific meaning. So I'll tell you what I get, but I suggest maybe pausing the video and just contemplating it, because it's a bit like dream imagery, so you may see something very specific for you in it. Okay, so I feel in this is you, and this is the people that you watch over, because if you look at the nature of this relationship, it looks as though this person is developing a skill, and potentially music. It looks like they're playing an instrument. So music is close to love, to the heart, and so forth, and this is you watching over them. But I think that what it is indicating here is that there is a point where the skill is such that the watching over can withdraw. So I think it overall is reminding you, plus also the fact that you are coming up here as almost like a guardian angel. It is like you're an earth angel or you know, a starseed or something like that, as I said at the beginning. There is something more advanced in what you bring, but it needs to be supportive and allow the persons or the people around you to develop their own skills and ability and so forth. And I feel with the instrument there, you've got the music of the spheres, a connection to the soul. So pile 2, you guys are really impressive, but you do need to understand and let go for people to meet you. And that ultimately is the greatest act of love that you can do. So I hope that this resonated for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Beyond that, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So this is the card that brought you to the reading, and this is another card from the deck which give us a bit of a sense of the process, where you're up to at the moment in terms of your spiritual journey. And then these cards give us a little bit more detail about what that is looking like before we use the tarot. So you are here. You chose the card manifestation, which is literally about manifestation, bringing things into being. So there is certainly something about you which is meant to manifest in this world. And I think these cards tell us a particular way that you do it. But part of what you're manifesting is a rebirth of your own soul, your own journey, and potentially the rebirth of others, freeing them, freeing that energy, allowing the past to move away and exploring the future. And what I think this is saying about you is that you bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of a legacy, and you create something that has a legacy, which I think connects to the storyteller here. You are someone who can manifest because of the power of your mind and the power of your words. And you really are developed in alchemy or in manifestation in the spiritual process of turning base metal into gold, which is the concept of the spiritual journey and the spiritual development. But you've gone through something. You certainly, I think it'll be interesting to see the dark night of the soul, because I think you've largely gone through the dark night of the soul. So it may be just residual energy we're looking at here. You've gone beneath the surface. You're able to do that because you have a lot of courage. You kind of know that you can be reborn and reborn and reborn. I think that this spiritual process you've gone through a number of times in your life, and you've become more and more refined each time. It has that sort of phoenix energy to it. And that's made you more open to exploring and really working out what's going on. If you don't manifest something in the way that you would expect to, you will look within first to work out what's going on under the surface. But you've also got amazing situational awareness. You're not just about sitting and having a vision board and you know, saying affirmations. You actually really do look beneath the surface on what's going on in the material world around you. What are the constituent elements of whatever you're dealing with that you can break down and sort of reconstitute through an alchemical process? And you carry yourself with great dignity. People really respond to you because you are about sort of growth and manifestation in its most positive way. You're very likely actually to create, as I say, a legacy, to create money, to bring things in and all that sort of thing. If you haven't already done it, I think you're going to do it. People get a sense from you that that's part of who you are, and you may well teach and help others to do it. But I think a large chunk of it is because you know how to tell the story. You understand what's going on in the material world and what's also going on beneath the surface. If you were a writer, you would be an amazing writer. You are likely to manifest books, movie, screenplays, whatever it might be, that are really going to have a legacy and really last, and potentially with that kind of energy have lots and lots of sequels to them. So it's very specific, but I'm getting that for some of you potentially. And they have a real psychological heft, and they help people there's a redemptive arc, a sort of rebirth arc with it, and you get known for it. You get known on some level. So in this life, you are meant to manifest. It's meant to be using the power of your mind and your storytelling and your narrative to really raise things to the surface, and I think help a lot of people in understanding the true process of spiritual development. But I feel for many of you, it's more likely to be done through something that feels like manifestation work or a story that you tell or something like that, rather than necessarily teaching people, say, alchemy or something like that. It's more that you exude this in some way, and it's partly that you are unafraid. So let's have a look and see what your light path is with the tarot. So I'm getting something very specific. Some of you, part of your light path, and why I feel like you've kind of started to do this already, is that you're in the process of laying down the burden that's been brought by someone who's perhaps not been terribly honest with you. With the Magician reversed and the Ten of Wands reversed, I get the sense that you've had an aha moment. You've come out of a difficult relationship, a difficult friendship, difficult work environment, or you may be about to do that because you realise there's a disconnect between what you're trying to achieve and what this person or this sort of environment is demanding of you. Certainly, you've started to see a return on investment on the work that you've done, whether it's spiritually or more generally, and there is cause for celebration around that. There are a lot more options for you, whether it be in love, if that is a love relationship we're talking about, or whether it's about your passions and what you want to manifest and bring into being. You are at a stage where, because you have started with the 7 here in Pentacles of really bringing something into being, you've learnt some of the thing around manifestation. It is working for you. You then at a stage where you can start to say, well, what are my dreams? What are my ambitions? And let go of demands on you, as I say, from things that aren't true of you, that aren't true of your power. I do think that some of you with this energy, part of your light energy is to deal with dark energy that may also be around. So in the manifestation on the magic level, some of you may follow high magic or something like that. You may literally do rituals and all that sort of thing. It suggests that maybe part of your light path is to recognize and stay away from those who use it for darker or more selfish means. Now, as I said, I feel like most of you have been through the dark night of the soul, but we're still going to use the other tarot deck to see what energy around the dark night of the soul is there for you. I think this may be a residual of the dark night of the soul, the understanding, but we'll see what else is still there for you to consider. So we've got these two, both 7s of Pentacles in both, and I think that's confirming what my feeling was, that you may well go into another dark night of the soul, but at this point in time, I think you've largely come out of it. You've started to realize what it is that you want and what you don't want as well, what is not proper practice, what is not proper magic, and that sort of thing. And you've developed some courage as a result of that. But it hasn't been without some losses or some issues. There's something about childhood or very early life here where and there may still be a residual issue around this. It may be around relationships with your family or siblings or school friends or something. There's something where there's still some emotional energy that isn't fully resolved, and part of that is making this burden that you're still carrying. You're working that out. So for some of you, you may have very long-standing friendships or relationships, or there could be issues around your family where there's a lot of a drain on your energy, and you're still really working that out. Could be around a female energy with the moon. It could also be around someone who is like you and very psychic. See, I think that some of you are around someone or a group of people that are using very strong psychic abilities, manifestation abilities, but not in a good way. So, but you are aware of it. You've gone through the dark night of the soul. It's not hidden from you anymore. And you've really worked out what it is to be in good harmony with people and so forth, and to know what you want emotionally. That's why you're at a point where you can start to make some material decisions about that. But there's something about maybe sort of family or long-standing relationships. Maybe, I do get for some of you, you're sort of part of some sort of spiritual group, and there may be people in it who are not there for the right reasons, or you may be breaking from one spiritual tradition to go into another, and there's something about magic and manifestation associated with it. But you really have determined what is the right path for you. This is why you're at the rebirth thing, because you haven't been afraid to look at it in the face. It's like there might have been a lot of smoke and mirrors around this spiritual group or these people. They might talk all the good talk, love and light, etc., but their actions don't really mirror that. You've seen that, you've understood that, you've gone to the depths and understood what that's about so that you can release yourself. Okay, so let's have a look. There were also these cards that were under this card to bring you to this reading, and they're cards from decks that talk about spiritual gifts. So we want to ask now what spiritual gifts you have, apart from, I think, manifestation, which you're all over. But what other spiritual energies can help you at the moment in your mystical path? So we have numerologists. So, okay, if you don't study numerology, it may be worth looking into it. It may be worth seeing a numerologist. There's going to be something about numbers. Pay attention to numbers that come up synchronistically for you. Pay attention to angel numbers, that kind of thing. We have moon magic. So, yeah, you're very magical. I do think most of the people who've come here, there's a magic element to what you do in your spirituality. A manifestation, a magic element. And it may be that it heightens at times of the moon, or understanding the cycles of the moon will help you if you don't already, though I think many of you probably do. It's interesting too that we have the moon magic here with the moon and the dark night of the soul. Maybe part of what you did when you were in the dark night of the soul is communed with moon energy to really shed the light on what was really going on around you. And we also have palmistry. So again, maybe get your palm read or learn palmistry. This is about interpretation, and so this is the storyteller seeing the narrative underneath, going to beneath the surface, being really able to see what's actually going on as opposed to what is being promoted as going on around you. All right, so we also want to have a look at some divine supports for you. So we're going to start firstly with some animal totems, so some divine animal totems, and then we're going to look at a goddess and also at angel energy around you. So we have sea otter, transformation. So yes, you're going through the transformation, the rebirth and so forth. Sea otter helps you with that, helps the flow, helps release the emotional energy as well too, to get to the joy. And we also have peacock, prosperity. So this is bringing in the abundance. You are going to be very successful at what you do. If you haven't already started being, you are heading in that direction. That's what you're meant to do. You're meant to be prosperous in this life, to be abundant in this life. Let's see the goddess energy around you, pile 3. We have Cleo, past lives, reconnect with your past. So it may be worth doing some sort of, if you haven't already done it, past life regressions. Otherwise, it could be, remember that we had under here the 6 of Cups reversed. It may be Cleo helping you work out what was it that you wanted when you were young that you've maybe suppressed or that has been exploited by other people. So understanding past lives and even earlier in your life to reconnect with that, to understand something. All right, let's see what angel energy is around you at the moment. Pile 3. Angel of remembrance. Okay, there's something about the past. And guardian angel. Yes, because I think you probably do need a bit of a guardian angel at the moment. I think you're aware of it. I think you're very powerful. I think you can deal with stuff, but it can't hurt to have a guardian angel if you are disconnecting from something, some relationship, some group, whatever it is, that has not been honest, that has used magical ability or used understanding of psychology or whatever it is to be duplicitous and so forth. So a guardian angel is there to watch over you, but also the angel of remembrance. So there's something about remembering what mattered to you when you were young. It's something, maybe there's even sort of people who've passed on that are in your sort of generational line that are here to help you. But there's something about remembering with Cleo here with past lives, and that will help you truly understand. I'm actually getting that some of you, if you do some sort of past life meditation aligned with the cycles of the moon, you may well find that you'll get a key to something, to the next step of your manifestation. Okay, So also to help you, we want to get some astrology energy before we close out with the soul cards. So what astrology energy spirit does pile 3 need to really help them in the next stage of their mystical journey? 12th house, 2nd house, and waning crescent. So the 12th house is all that is secret, all that is beneath, all that is depth psychology. There's something about that for you guys, you know, whether you're telling it in a story, whether you're understanding what's going on, secrets, understanding below the surface. That's part of your manifestation ability. You don't pull any punches in a way on that level. You know what is really going on. People can't, they may try for a while and may have worked for a while to hoodwink you, but it doesn't last and you see through it. The 2nd house is connecting to the peacock, connecting to the manifestation. You are meant to make money in this life. You are meant to have the possessions and the values that you want and to align your possessions to values. I think this is one of the issues. I think that some of the people around you who have been into whatever similar sort of magic or spiritual manifestation work have not had your values. And it's understanding that at a depth level that helps. And then the waning crescent moon allows you to surrender control of that and let that go, because that energy just holds you back, whereas you're meant to be sort of focusing on, I think, the 2nd house and bringing in your manifestation. Okay, so pile 3, we're going to finish off with a soul card, which doesn't have a set meaning. It's just evocative imagery. So I will tell you what I get from the card that I pull here, but you may get something else. So maybe pause the video and contemplate it for a little while before going at the end of this reading. Okay, so this is a very complex sort of card. This looks like protecting yourself. And this looks like also someone else you're protecting as well, which is interesting. So I think that whatever this issue is has involved more than just you. But there is a sense of like covering yourself and protecting yourself with light and the colours of the rainbow and so forth. So definitely there's something, part of your rebirth and so forth is, and it's going to be part of the story that you tell in the end, is dislodging that energy which is not helpful. But I also think these colours of the guardian angels around you, that you will be able to let that kind of shadow energy go and be able to stand again. But right at the moment, it feels like there's still something residual there. So you've gone through the dark night of the soul and understanding it, but there's still something residual that you're needing to shift around people. But you are protected. Okay, so pile 3, I hope that resonates for you. I hope it's helpful. I think there's a lot that you can do in this world and so forth. It's just really being able to sort of get rid of that energy that was not in alignment with you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to comment, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So this card brought you here. That's another card from the same deck, which together gives us a bit of a sense about where you're up to with your spiritual and mystical journey at the moment. And then this gives us some more information. My first very strong feeling when I look at this, and it's fairly complex actually, but at its most simple level, and simplicity is part of what you are here to do, to simplify things and to bring things to first principles, is that this is the group of shaman and mediums. And also the highly mystical, I think this may have very much attracted people who do follow a mystical path in the way that I described at the beginning. So this is like, one half of this is shaman mediums connecting to the afterlife, connecting to the animal kingdom, connecting to what brings growth and so forth, and being a priest of a type of spiritual pathway. The other half is the divine connection. Now, some of you, there may in fact be a divine connection, a twin flame or soul twin energy with this as well too. But these two together, just going to the absolute simplest form of the mystical path that I talked about before I move out into the shaman and so forth, is in an essence exactly what I talked about for the dark night of the soul, because there is a sense of the divine connection, the wanting to be connected at a heart level, at a soul level with the divine, and then the afterlife, the connection at that point. There is that the crossover point to connect is in the afterlife, and so there is a sort of a sense of in between lives, a kind of, you can have that closer connection to the divine, to be more part of it and so forth, more joined to it. and then you come into life and you're separated from it. So it's almost as though there is a price to that. And for some of you, it may be that the way that you mitigate that price is through a divine connection in this lifetime. For others, it may be connecting to those who passed over, so the mediumship. And for others, it may be connecting, as I say, to the natural world and the shamanic process of going into the almost death state to get that kind of spiritual enlightenment. The intensity of this is such that this is why we have simplicity, that it's almost as though you need to really pick a pathway and stick to it, because your connection to the other world, to other people and everything is so intense, and so much information comes to you and so much demands are made on you, I think, from others, that you need to keep things simple to decide what is the best way to use this energy in this life. Am I going to be a shaman? Am I going to be some form of spiritual priest? Am I going to be someone who coaches and mentors others for their growth so that they can understand that there is something far greater? Am I going to be a relationship coach that challenges and helps people through that, or a therapist in some way? There's a simplicity, and your spiritual team is very much connected to you, and some of them may well be people in your family or loved ones passed on. There's a very strong sort of sense of that connection, and also I think of the animal kingdom. But it's because of the fact that it's such a clear distillation of exactly what this reading was meant to be about, which is the sort of how do you live in the material world and still have that connection to the divine and make that work. And these abilities that you've developed and a comfort that you have in the realm of the underworld and in the realm of the afterlife and so forth. I don't think that death scares you much. In fact, you might almost not look forward to it, but see that as a kind of a respite and a reconnection and a recharging of the batteries. Certainly some of you could take a very ascetic, priestly way of doing things. Others, as I say, may do that through a divine union, and others through being a priest or a shaman or something like that in a group. But certainly this, where you are at the moment, is understanding why it is that you're drawn to the realms outside of the 3D, what that connection is for you, and how your spiritual team are trying to challenge and grow you, but also so that you can challenge and grow other people by a connection to that sort of really strong energy that's around you. So let's have a look and see what your light path is at the moment. So the interesting thing, and I think maybe the reason simplicity came up here, is that at the moment your light path, your path towards the divine, you feel a bit constrained by the material world in one way or another. Maybe by a job, maybe by having a leadership role or something like that. Even if you are like someone who's a priest or something to others, there's a sort of a leadership authority role or whatever. And at the moment it does feel like it is restraining your progress. It's almost like the material world and the powers of the world hold you back. You're much more interested in the immaterial and the powers of the divine, to be frank. You certainly have started to develop these skills, but there's more to learn, much more to learn. And for some of you, you're in an environment that is not conducive to this. You will start to see more and more that that's the case, that the material aims of what's around you are taking you away from what you're trying to build. So for some of you, this simplicity is about going back, as I say, to first principles. What's the challenge here to your growth? What is stopping you from having that sense of connectedness to the divine? I think for some of you, you are either in sort of spiritual traditions, or you are in a workplace, or you're in a very conventional sort of family or relationship or something like that, that has impeded this sense of the spiritual and the numinous and the divine in some way. But you have really started to work on the material outcomes of that, on how to be what it is that you want to be in this world. There is an understanding, as I say, about what's going on. I just feel that you go, well, I'm sort of stuck here in the 3D. I'd rather be up with the divine, but I'm stuck here and I have these abilities to connect to all of that. So how can I actually turn that into something material that helps me and helps others? And how do I get back to first principles? So let's sort of see, because this is such a perfect distillation of the dark night of the soul, what the dark night of the soul energy is for you at the moment. Pile 4. So this is definitely suggesting that most people who've come here, you're in an environment, a relationship or an environment. I think for most of you it's an environment, family environment, work environment, community environment, group environment, whatever it is, that is not conducive to what you know of the spiritual and of your spiritual path. It's very interesting that we have the 3 of Pentacles here in the dark night of the soul reversed. So in the dark night of the soul, you wonder whether or not you have developed. And this is, I think, Spirit saying you have gone further than you expect that you have, but you've really started to doubt the foundations of what you've done. And something has come out, you've learned something about the environment that has made you think, is this a loss of innocence? Like there's a real sense of a loss of innocence around this, actually, particularly with the Justice card here. It's like you've discovered something in a relationship, a group or whatever. There's some similar energy in another reading, actually, so maybe some of you have come to 2, but there's something where the pathway is not true, and your spirit team is showing you that. And so you feel as though there is something that needs to be brought back into balance, something that needs to be more reciprocal. It sort of feels like, and particularly here with the 2 of Wands reversed, it's like you feel very alone. And part of this is why you want the divine connection. It's actually not unusual. It doesn't necessarily mean that there are terrible people around you, though some of you may have some people who are a bit unevolved, let's put it that way, or a little bit power oriented or a little bit demanding. But it feels more like that. It feels like maybe some of you are working as shaman or healers or spiritual advisors or mediums or something, and there's a real drain on your energy operating. It's not reciprocated. And so it's sort of like you're always looking to the divine to sort of download that energy to you, but it gets a bit exhausting. And I think there are demands. I almost feel like there's sort of material demands on you and so forth. So I think the dark night of the soul is working out the balance of what you can give others and what you need to give yourself, because you don't just have these gifts to help others, you also have it to establish and re-establish that sort of almost priestly, spiritual, mystical connection. And I think that part of this is being brought to your attention by Spirit and by your spiritual team so that you challenge those that are blocking their own growth or your growth. Okay, so let's have a look at what spiritual gifts you have that can help you with this, apart from, I think, obviously mediumship and shamanic sort of healing ability. So these cards were under this card as well. So let's see what we have here. So we have Ascension Path 7, which is where your pineal gland is fully open. So yes, you are very much connected to others and to the divine. Now, being connected to others can be a drain on the battery, so be aware of that. I'm also getting, for some of you with the pineal gland here, just watch how much fluoride you take in. That can actually calcify the pineal gland a bit. So just be aware of that sort of thing, like on a health level for you. Then we have, and I know that some say, and there's probably some truth to it, that fluoride helps with teeth, but it's about balance. I'm just talking about balance here. We have glamour magic. Yeah, see, there's something. You have the capacity to be invisible and to use your glamour when it's necessary. So certainly Spirit is saying use that, but I think there may also be a bit of that around you. So to pick up and be aware where things are not what they appear to be. And fortune cookie fortuitous. So Spirit is saying, regardless of all of that, you are going to be lucky with this. You are protected. That's your spirit team around you. But I feel like fortune cookie is a very simple, direct message from the divine. And remember, we had simplicity. So I think it's suggesting that divinatory practices that are very simple, like yes, no, or throwing out the I Ching or something like that. I just feel like there's very simple messages that you can get direct because you are so connected already. So don't feel you have to overcomplicate your spiritual search. Okay, so pile 4, let's also ask what help you have. So we're looking firstly at some divine animal totems, and then we'll look at goddess energy and angel energy around you. So we have peacock, yes, that came up in another one too. So I do think some of you may be connecting with two. So this is about prosperity. So this, you are meant to be fortunate with whatever you do. So if you felt in the dark night of the soul that some of your foundations have been lacking, it's really about just getting the reciprocity and bringing the material energy in more in a way that works for you as well as for others. Okay, and we also have beaver, work, so working hard, so getting on with it. Yeah, there's something about your spiritual pathway that is like a job or a vocation or a calling for you. So, and it's also, I think, the animal totems here are saying, yes, you are so drawn to the animal totems, to the natural world and to the afterlife and all of that, but you are here to do something. So we will help you work at what you're here to do and have the success out of it. Okay, let's see what a goddess energy is for you, pile 4. Aphrodite, feminine power. So that certainly is about love, divine connection. Some of you, it may be that you express some of this through a divine connection or a divine love. It also would suggest that you draw people to you because of the beauty of what you have to offer. But Aphrodite is also about connecting into the divine feminine. So that's not about gender. That's just about the divine feminine nurturing sort of elements. And I think to nurture yourself as well too. I think she will help you nurture yourself, because I think that the path of the shaman, the path of the medium is very, very giving, and that you do need to bring that into balance. To also help you, let's see what angel energies there are. Angel of clear cognizance, angel of inner peace. So, clear cognizance, going along with the mediumship, shamanic, you have many, many psychic abilities, and one of them is a clear seeing, a clear understanding, and part of that is because you are so connected. But part of that is also meant to give you inner peace. It's not just about helping everybody else with their problems. It is also about bringing you to peace with the fact that you are the sort of person that no matter how much you connect to somebody in this life or to your purpose or any of those things, you will still be yearning for the beloved. You will be yearning for the divine. You will be yearning for that time in between lives. So an angel of inner peace is here to help you with that and to give you the clear sight of what to do in this life to bring you as close as possible to that in this realm. Okay, so to also help you, I'm just going to get some astrology cards before we finish up with a soul card. So we have Jupiter. See, this is luck. This is luck, fortune, expansion, growth. Sextile, we'll have a look at what planets are in sextile. And the moon. So just on its own, it would suggest that the energy of the moon has an ease towards abundance. So connecting to the moon magic, understanding of your emotions, the divine feminine, all of that will help. Let's have a look and see what planets are in sextile. Sextile is an aspect of ease. So these planets should work well together to help you deal with and transmute, I think, the sort of almost the yearning that you have for the immaterial when you are here in the material, pile 4. So you just have to bear with me until I get planets. Sometimes it can take a little while. Venus, so yes, about love, connection and so forth. Venus and Pluto, transformative love. So some of you definitely, this is picking up something like a divine connection, a divine union. That's definitely the case, and that helps with the growth and so forth. Certainly you would have an ease in going through transformation through love, and it also shows the transformative energy of the love that you have for the divine. Pluto is also about the underworld, the afterlife, the shamanic energy again coming through, but it connects you to your heart, and that's, I think, what Spirit wants you to remember, that's what this is about, and that's what the mystical path is about. Okay, so last but not least, I'm going to draw a soul card, which this is very evocative imagery. It doesn't have a particular meaning to it, so we just extrapolate from the energy of the reading. You may want to pause at the end of the reading and contemplate it yourself, because I think it's very much like dream imagery. And yours. looks like the Magician to me, as above, so below, I feel I'm getting, and the light of the sun and so forth. I think it feels like you actually in between lives, looking down on the earth and looking down on what you would actually bring to the earth and the light that you'll bring to the earth. And that one part of you is still reaching up to the heavens, and one part is accepting and moving to the earth. So I think that's you in a nutshell, Powerful. I think that your connection to the divine is profound, and so it almost feels like every time you have to be in the 3D, it's a separation, to be frank. But on another level, there is a bigger purpose to this, and it is connecting the two. So the more that you use your psychic and spiritual abilities to make that connection, the more you're going to feel the sort of radiant light around you. And also the more that you're going to be able to help others to grow and so forth, challenge others to understand this on a deeper level and have prosperity and good fortune come to you. So Powerful, I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.